Very warm welcome to everyone. Today we will cover the editorial section of the Hindu and Indian Express of 22nd of July and 21st of July. All right. So here's the first article. So I have made the question. All right. So among other causes, soil health is a critical challenge for nutritional security in India. So basically, in this article, we will study the relation between soil health and nutritional security. So how soil health of a soil is related to the nutritional security in India. All right. So first of all, let us understand that nutritional security is an important component of food security in India. We and food security has two components. One is calorific sufficiency, which is a quantitative nature, that the amount of food that I have with me. All right. But whether the food is sufficient does have a sufficient nutritional capacity, it is the qualitative aspect. All right. So अगर calorific sufficiency देखे तो India is already well sufficient. All right. Last year only 20.2 million we have of food grains we have exported out of 61 million ton of global market of rice. All right. We have also Garib Kalyan Yojana, which is the world largest food distribution program, which provides 5 kg free rice or wheat per person per month. Food Corporation of India has a buffer of 57 million ton, which is highest in 20 years. And we have also reduced the extreme poverty headcount from 27% in 2011 to 5.3% in 2020. Yet, despite reduction of property, we can see that the NFHS survey shows that 35% of children are under 5 are shunted, 32% are underweight, and 19.1% are wasted. That means that we we do have a sufficient food quantity available with us, but the and also we are successful in reducing the poverty headcount. Despite that, the only issue here is that our food that we are producing is not sufficiently nutritious. All right. And one of the major reason is the health of the soil, and this is what is the question. All right. How the soil health is related to the nutritional security in India. All right. So how health of the soil is related to nutritional security. So currently we know that the status quo of health of our soil, we can see that our soil is deficient in sulfur. Also it is deficient in micronutrients such as iron, zinc, and boron. All right. So there is a sample conducted by soil health card scheme, wherein 8.8 million soil sample were tested, and उसमें ये पाया गया कि less than 5% of the soil have very high less than 5% of the soil have high or sufficient nitrogen, and only 5 less than 5% have sufficient nitrogen, only 40% have sufficient potash, and just 20% have sufficient soil organic carbon, which is a very important component of water holding capacity of the soil and its nutrient use efficiency. Imagine 80% of our soil lacks the organic sufficient soil organic carbon, which directly affect the nutrient use efficiency uh, of the soil. All right. Secondly, we also have imbalance in the usage of various types of nutrients. So we know that major nutrients are NPK, nitrogen, potassium, and potash. All right. In Punjab, we can see so imbalance in usage. So nitrogen is overused because the subsidy given by the government on nitrogen is huge. Also, it is domestically produced, so availability is also there, and therefore it is overused in comparison to the potassium. So in Punjab, nitrogen uses exceed 60%, and potassium is short by 89%, and phosphorus is short by 8%. Also, the excessive use of nitrogen result in nitrogen loss, because only 30 to 40% of the nitrogen is absorbed, and remaining is leached into the groundwater, which contaminates the groundwaters. All right, which by nitrates, and it makes it unfit for the consumption. Secondly, the remaining goes released as a nitrous oxide, which is 273 times more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So it also has an environmental effect, negative environmental effect, and also has an impact on soil health. What is the need? We need to shift from rigorous indiscriminate use of fertilizer to a tailored and science-based soil nutrition management. All right. For that, we need to have a rigorous soil testing, which is aligned with the nutritional needs of different soils and crops. All right, because we know that only nutrient-rich soil will produce the nutrient-rich food, and therefore it is a very very important and pressing need for, especially in context of public health. All right. So this is the first question. Now, second, sulfur dioxide emission and flue gas desulfurization. So basically, what is SO2 emission? SO2 emission basically, the major source of sulfur dioxide emission is power sector. In power sectors, that too a thermal power plant which uses the coal to produce electricity, and it releases the sulfur dioxide. All right. A research was conducted by this organization which found that the SO2 level is higher in 2023 compared to 2019, notably majorly increase in the areas where coal-based thermal power plant was located. All right. So how does it affect SO2 emission affects the environment, affects the health. And how does it affect environment? Because it contributes to the acid rain. It reacts with the ammonia, which produce ammonium sulfate, which is responsible for 1/3 of the uh, particulate matter 2.5 emission. And this particulate matter 2.5 emission causes the chronic diseases such as asthma, heart attack, bronchitis, and the respiratory problem. In also long-term exposure, it has the impact of increasing of heart attacks, strokes, and premature death. What are the government intervention? So in 2005, uh, government mandate to install flue gas desulfurization device, and the target was to establish mandate was to establish by December 2017. However, this deadline was extended, and in 2020, government made an amendment whereby they categorized the thermal power plant into three categories. Category one, which are the plants which are located within 10-kilometer radius of national capital region, or cities where there is a one population of more than 1 million. All right. So 11% of the plant come under that category. उनके लिए डेडलाइन रखी गई थी 2022. कैटेगरी बी वो प्लांट जो 10 किलोमीटर की रेडियस में है ऑफ क्रिटिकली पोल्यूटेड एरिया और नॉन अटेनमेंट सिटी वो सिटी होती है जो दे विच आर एक्सीडिंग दी नेशनल एयर क्वालिटी इंडेक्स के स्टैंडर्ड को. ठीक है, उनके लिए 2023 डेडलाइन रखी गई. और कैटेगरी सी, रेस्ट ऑफ द प्लांट जो 78% ऑफ प्लांट जिसमें आते हैं, और उनके लिए 2024 डेडलाइन रखी गई. बट रिसेंटली लेटेस्ट चेंजेस जो 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 किए हैं गवर्नमेंट ने, उन्होंने कैटेगरी ए की डेडलाइन को 2027 तक एक्सटेंड कर दिया है, कैटेगरी सी को एग्जेम्प्ट कर दिया है कंप्लीटली, एंड कैटेगरी बी को they will decide case by case basis that whether to stop whether to install flue gas desulfurization devices or not. उसके लिए गवर्नमेंट ने कोई रीजन दिए हैं वेग से, which you can read from your. Right now, let us come to the editorial of 22nd of July. So the first is this US, Israel, and Iran war and its impact on India. So the question is that West Asia plays an important role in India's foreign policy goal of achieving multipolarity. So here we will link multipolarity with West Asia. That how the recent changes or the geopolitical fallout in West Asia affects the India's important goal, especially with respect to the West Asia, that to maintain multipolarity, how it is being affected. All right. So basically, the war the short war that happened, and possibly more will happen as the time passes. That how these events in West Asia impacts the India foreign policy, the goal of India's foreign policy of multipolarity. So what is multipolarity, and what are the events happening in Asia, and we need to link both of them. And this is the demand of the question. All right. So what is happening in uh, West Asia is basically possibly result in balkanization of Iran. and that will disturb the power in West Asia, because West Asia, there's only one anti-US force, and that is Iran. Rest of all the West Asian players such as Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, um, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, they all are US aligned. All right. So that will increase if there is a regime change or balkanization of Iran, that will increase the US dominance, and that will lead to the US unipolarity in the region, and that will affect the strategic influence that India has in the region. All right. Furthermore, we know that the recent in Syria, Bashar al-Assad government was toppled, and that was the one player that was against the US. There was as a bulwark against the US, but that too, with the regime change in Syria, that too turned against us. So so this is what is happening. This is, if Iran also goes like that, then there will be ultimate control of West Asian politics by US unipolarity, and that will majorly affect the India's foreign policy goal of multipolarity. One of the fallout of this will be energy import, because now India will be completely dependent on the import of uh, oil from all the government which are dependent on US security guarantees. All right, our goal is to have a diverse mix of import. All right, and that will strengthen US hegemony in West Asia. That is a common, this is a common cause for India, China, and Russia. What we need to do is we need to engage with powers which have similar concerns with us, such as China and Russia, and that is what US really understand, and therefore they are imposing 100% sanction on the import of Russian oil and other factors. So it needs to be taken out that how the uh, the change is going to affect India. Rest is second is the this gender divide in private school. So this is the only data which you can use in GS3, GS2, especially in social justice. That this data shows that the private share, private school के जो share of uh, in private school, the share of boys and girls, the proportion of boys and girls are increased across India. But shares of girls attending the private school have considerable lower than the boys. This is what this data shows. And this shows that how families are preferring their son over boys. This can be used in GS2. Now the third is whether IP material produced by generative AI infringes copyright law. So the question is, what are the generative AI and what are the challenges posed by it in the domain of IP law? So we all know what is generative AI, such as ChatGPT and Grok. They can generate content on its own. They can produce original content rather than just yeah, sorting information and classifying according to demand. But they have the capability to generate image, context, text. Now the question is that who owns the content generated by AI, and whether the use of copyrighted content in feeding the AI, does it cause the violation of copyright law or not? So basically it is the important decisions with respect to this question has been arised in three cases of 2025, that is Thomas Reuter versus Ross Intelligence, Bartz versus Anthropic, and Kadri versus Meta. In all of the three cases, court have held that the training of AI by using legitimately acquired text, whether it is copyrighted or not, it qualifies as a fair use and does not violate the copyright laws. All right. But occasionally, because occasionally may happen that AI can produce content that are closely resemble or even duplicate the specific work from training data set. But what will depend on whether it violates the copyright law or not? It will depend on whether the output that is produced jo that is produced by AI, it undermines the original works market by replacing them, or whether it adds value and considered transformative. If the second case is happening, then it will consider it as a fair use. But if this is happening, this will impact the this will considered as the violation of copyright law. And this is what the court in mm, Kedley versus Meta in Bart's versus Anthropic have said that use of copyright data for training is transformative. If use of data is transformative, it generates different content, then it is compared with the writer's learning from the prior work, and it is not considered as a violation. However, if the use of pirated content for however the use of pirated content is not permitted. All right, the use of the use for the copyrighted data for training the AI must not be pirated. All right. So yes. So only if it is transformative in nature, then only it can be considered as fair use. If it replaces the original works market and replaces them, then it will not be considered as a violation of then it will be considered as a violation of copyright law. And this is what Kedley Meta Court have said, that there must be no market dilution by the use of plaintiff work. All right. And also the court have said that the AI company who are making money by using this copyrighted content must figure out a way to share the wealth to the original authors. All right. इशू इसमें है कि भाई the absence of there is no harmonized law, there is no uniformity, and there is no legal uniformity with respect to how this issues to be resolved. So there is no global harmonization. And also it's a legal question that who will own the IP rights of the output produced by the generative AI. It is also legally uncertain. All right. With respect to India, we can say that copyright owner enjoy the exclusive economic right, including reproduction, adoption, translation, which requires permission for commercial use. But there is also an exception in India which talks about fair dealing under section 52 of Copyright Act 1957. Now come to the next question: human induced earthquake. So the question is, what are the human induced earthquake? What are the causes? What are the causes of their recent increase in occurrence and intensity? So what is earthquake? Basically, earthquake, we know that it's a sudden release of energy in the earth crust. It can caused by natural causes. It can also be caused by human related artificial causes, which are caused by humans. All right. So what are the natural causes? We all know that any cause natural, such as tsunami, which can impact the tectonic shift in the crust of the earth, and it might release sudden burst of energy, and that have ultimately effect on the ground level. Or it may be the sudden burst of lava from inside, which can shift the tectonic plates, and it can result in sudden release of energy. So these are the natural causes. But what are the human induced earthquakes? Are caused by the causes which are humanly induced, not by nature induced. So recently we have found a study that there are 700 plus human induced earthquake in last 150 years, and they are increasing frequently. Now what are the major causes? Major causes are increasing mining, extraction of groundwater, impounding of water behind the dam, tall buildings, and engineering coastal structure. The commonality in all of these causes are that it causes the repeated loading and unloading of the crust. So जहाँ भी प्रेशर जो है वो अगर बढ़ता है या कम होता है, तो that leads to the accumulation of strain between tectonic plate, and it leads to the seismic activity, it's sudden release of energy. So with regard to the ग्राउंड वाटर एक्सट्रैक्शन में क्या होता है कि भाई जो पानी है, पानी वो एक प्रेशर बना के रखता है, पानी का वेट एक प्रेशर होता है, अगर वो प्रेशर या हटाया जाएगा या निकाला जाएगा, तो दैट इट विल शिफ्ट इन द इट विल कॉज द इट विल shift mass of the water in maintaining the pressure, and therefore it will create the jolt. अगर पानी को हटाया जाएगा तो प्रेशर रिलीज हो जाएगा, और पानी को बहुत ज्यादा भर दिया जाएगा तो अल्टीमेटली इट विल कॉज द प्रेशर ऑन द अर्थ क्रस्ट, and that will ultimately result in the shift causing will cause the stress uh, uh, on the tectonic plates, and that might result in increase in stress and sudden release of energy. इसकी रिस्क पर्टिकुलरली अपने गंगेटिक प्लेन में बहुत ज्यादा है, बिकॉज वहाँ पे एग्रीकल्चर की वजह से ग्राउंड वाटर एक्सट्रैक्शन इज इंक्रीजिंग एंड वाटर टेबल आर ड्रॉपिंग. तो एक 2021 की स्टडी में ये पाया गया था कि भाई 2003 से 2012 तक वाटर टेबल डिक्रीज हुई है, और उसी के साथ साथ देर इज अ corresponding increase in seismic activity. All right. And further it found that the shallow earthquake in NCR region is could be linked to the excessive groundwater extraction. Now reservoir induced earthquakes. So because we know that कोई भी लार्ज डैम होता है तो वहाँ रिजर्वर बनाना जरूरी होता है, और रिजर्वर में जब पानी का लोड बढ़ता है तो वो पानी का लोड जो है वो बेसिकली इट कैन कॉज मैग्नीट्यूड, इट कैन कॉज loading and unloading, or causing stress on the surface, and that will ultimately result in the earthquakes. ये 6.3 मैग्नीट्यूड का अर्थक्वेक कोयाना महाराष्ट्र में हुआ था इसी की वजह से. Specifically, therefore, huge dams in seismic active area such as Himalaya are not recommended. Oil extraction में एक टेक्निक होती है fracking, which is when liquid is injected in the ground and to push the rock apart, and so that the oil and natural gas can be extracted. That can also induce the earthquake. There are 56 fracking sites in the 6 states in India, and that is the major threat to cause human-induced earthquake. Now, how the climate change is what is the impact of climate change in causing this human-induced earthquake? So we know that climate change की वजह से ग्लेशियर मेल्ट हो रहे हैं, और जैसे ही ग्लेशियर मेल्ट हो रहे हैं वो दे आर ट्रिगरिंग अर्थक्वेक इन अंटार्कटिका एंड ग्रीनलैंड, बिकॉज वाटर का लोड बढ़ रहा है. वाटर का जहां भी लोड बढ़ेगा, एंड दैट विल कॉज द प्रेशर ऑन द अर्थ क्रस्ट, and that pressure will create stress, and that will release and ultimately that will cause the ultimate release of energy. दूसरा, क्लाइमेट चेंज की वजह से रेनफॉल पैटर्न जो है वो चेंज हो रहा है, ठीक है, और रेनफॉल पैटर्न चेंज होने की वजह से रेनफॉल पैटर्न जो है वो सॉइल की केमिस्ट्री को चेंज करेगा, एंड देयरफॉर सॉइल केमिस्ट्री चेंज, रेनफॉल पैटर्न, ये दोनों चेंज होने की वजह से क्रॉपिंग पैटर्न चेंज होंगे, एंड दैट विल कंपेल फार्मर टू यूज मोर ग्राउंड वाटर फॉर इरिगेशन. एंड वी नो दैट ग्राउंड वाटर, अभी पढ़ा है कि ग्राउंड वाटर एक्सट्रैक्ट करने से भाई वाटर का लोड कम होगा, वाटर का लोड कम होगा तो दैट विल अल्टीमेटली कॉज स्ट्रेस एंड विल इंड्यूस इन सिस्मिक एक्टिविटी. दैट इज विटनेस इन वेस्टर्न घाट. Even drought can reactivate seismic fault that is recorded in California in 2014. So these are the impact of these are the how human induced earthquake are increasing in occurrence and intensity. And this is the end of it. Thank you so much.